There are moments in life when the heart feels heavy without making a sound, not because of sudden pain, but because of a waiting that stretches longer than the soul expected to endure. You have turned to Allah with sincerity, lifted your hands with hope, and held on to patience even when it felt fragile. Yet nothing seems to shift. The same doors remain closed, the same questions return, and quietly the heart begins to wrestle with thoughts it never wanted to entertain. It wonders if the delay means rejection, if the silence means distance, if Allah is displeased or no longer listening. This inner struggle does not come from weak faith. It comes from a heart that cares deeply, a heart that wants to trust but is tired of carrying uncertainty alone. What the heart often cannot see in these moments is that Allah's care is not always loud or immediate. Sometimes His mercy appears in the form of restraint, in the form of waiting, in the form of a pause that protects you from what you are not yet ready to face. Delay is not absence. Silence is not abandonment. Very often, the waiting itself is proof that Allah is working with precision, shaping a way that will not break you when it finally arrives. The human heart is built to search for reassurance. When we care deeply about something, whether it is relief from pain, an answer to dua, a change in circumstances, or a long-awaited opening, we instinctively look for signs that we are being heard. We expect movement. We expect some form of response that tells us our effort, patience, and sincerity matter. When those signs do not appear, the heart often reaches a painful conclusion on its own. It assumes that the silence means refusal, that the delay means distance, and that the lack of visible change means something is wrong with us. This reaction does not come from arrogance or lack of faith. It comes from how the human heart understands love. In human relationships, speed is often used as proof of care. A quick reply feels like interest. Immediate action feels like concern. Delayed responses are often interpreted as neglect or disinterest. Without realizing it, the heart carries this same expectation into its relationship with Allah. It begins to measure divine love using human standards, forgetting that Allah is not limited by emotions, impulses, or urgency. When something matters deeply to us, waiting becomes especially heavy. Time feels slower. Each day without change feels louder. The heart keeps returning to the same question. If Allah wanted this for me, wouldn't it have happened by now? Over time, this question quietly turns into doubt, not about Allah's power, but about one's own worth. The heart begins to wonder whether it prayed incorrectly, whether it is undeserving, or whether it has done something to cause Allah's displeasure. This is how delay slowly disguises itself as rejection in the mind. Allah does not deal with His servants according to emotional pressure or personal urgency. Allah responds according to wisdom, knowledge, and mercy that extend far beyond the present moment. What feels delayed to the heart is often perfectly timed in the unseen. What feels silent is often full of unseen activity. Allah's decisions are not reactions. They are precise decrees shaped by complete knowledge of the past, the present, and the future. The heart sees only what is happening now. Allah sees what this outcome will require from you later. He knows how it will affect your iman, your character, your humility, and your dependence on Him. He knows whether receiving something too early would distract your heart, weaken your gratitude, or attach you more to the blessing than to the one who gives it. Allah's delay is often an act of protection from outcomes the heart is not yet prepared to carry. What the heart experiences as rejection is often nothing more than limitation in perspective. The heart sees a closed door and assumes finality. Allah sees multiple doors that have not yet appeared. The heart sees stillness and assumes nothing is happening. Allah sees movement in places the eyes cannot reach and the mind cannot imagine. The delay is not a statement about your value. It is a reflection of Allah's awareness of what lies ahead and what your heart must become before reaching it. It is important to understand that Allah's delay does not cancel your dua. Every sincere prayer is recorded. Every tear is seen. Every quiet moment of patience is counted. The absence of immediate results does not mean the prayer has been dismissed. Sometimes the answer comes in a different form. Sometimes it comes later. And sometimes Allah responds by strengthening the heart so deeply that the original request no longer carries the same urgency or pain. The heart often believes that love must feel comforting at all times. But divine love sometimes feels challenging, stretching, and uncomfortable because it is shaping something lasting rather than something temporary. Allah is not concerned with easing a moment if it will harm a future. He is concerned with guiding the heart safely through both. That guidance does not always feel gentle in the moment, but it is always intentional. Delay also exposes where the heart is attached. When something is withheld, the heart begins to reveal what it truly depends on. Does it depend on outcomes, or does it depend on Allah? Does it trust only when things move smoothly, or does it trust even when nothing seems to change? These questions are not meant to accuse the heart, but to refine it. Allah allows delay to teach the heart how to rely without conditions. It is also important to remember that Allah's closeness is not measured by how quickly things change. Some of the people closest to Allah experience the longest waits, the hardest trials, and the most difficult seasons of uncertainty. Their closeness was not diminished by delay, it was strengthened by it. Allah draws hearts nearer through reliance, patience, and surrender, not through constant ease. When the heart understands this, the meaning of delay begins to shift. It no longer feels like rejection, but like preparation. It no longer feels personal in a painful way, but purposeful in a protective way. The heart begins to realize that Allah's timing is not meant to test worth, but to build readiness. What is being shaped during the waiting is often more valuable than what is being waited for. Delay is not Allah pushing you away. It is Allah guiding you carefully towards something that will arrive when it can be carried with peace rather than fear, gratitude rather than entitlement, and trust rather than desperation. The heart may not understand this immediately, but with reflection and patience, it begins to see that what felt like rejection was never about denial. It was about divine wisdom, choosing the right moment for both the gift and the heart that would receive it. The human heart lives inside the present moment. It feels what is happening now, carries what hurts now, and longs for relief now. When pain lingers or circumstances remain difficult, the heart naturally asks for immediate ease. It looks at its situation and believes that if the pain were removed, peace would return. But Allah sees far beyond the narrow window of the present. He sees the beginning, the unfolding, and the final outcome of every situation. While the heart reacts to what it feels, Allah responds to what He knows. There are times when the heart asks Allah to remove a hardship because it feels unbearable. Yet Allah sees that this hardship is quietly shaping something essential within the soul. Pain has a way of softening arrogance, humbling the ego, and breaking attachments that comfort often strengthens. What feels like suffering to the heart may be creating sincerity, depth, and reliance that ease alone could never produce. Allah does not allow pain to exist without purpose. Even when the heart cannot understand it, every difficulty carries wisdom measured with care. The heart often assumes that comfort is always beneficial and that struggle is always harmful. But Allah knows that constant comfort can harden the heart, while controlled difficulty can awaken it. Sometimes ease arrives too early and makes the heart forgetful, distracted, or overly attached to the world. Allah sees whether relief at this moment would draw the heart closer to Him or quietly pull it away. When Allah delays ease, it is often because He is protecting the heart from spiritual harm that is invisible in the present. There are also moments when the heart asks Allah to open a door that seems necessary for happiness. It may be a relationship, an opportunity, a position, or a change in life circumstances. From the heart's perspective, the opening appears clearly good, but Allah sees the long-term impact of that opening. He knows how it would shape your character, your iman, and your future choices. He knows what that door would expose you to emotionally, spiritually, and morally. When Allah keeps a door closed, it is not because He wants to deprive you, but because He knows what lies on the other side and how it would affect you. Allah's mercy often arrives in forms the heart does not immediately recognize. It can appear as delay, prevention, or redirection. To the heart, restraint feels like loss, but to Allah, restraint is often protection. He shields you not only from the harm you fear, but from the harm hidden inside what you desire. Many desires feel safe because their consequences have not yet revealed themselves. Allah sees those consequences clearly and acts with mercy by holding you back from what would damage you later. The heart also tends to judge situations based on appearances. It assumes that if something looks good, it must be beneficial, and if something feels painful, it must be harmful. But Allah does not judge by appearances. He judges by outcomes. He knows which experiences will strengthen faith and which will weaken it. He knows which paths lead to peace and which lead to regret. His decisions are not emotional responses. They are protective measures rooted in complete knowledge. One of the most difficult truths for the heart to accept is that Allah's love does not always feel comforting. Sometimes love feels like restraint. Sometimes it feels like being stopped at the edge of something you want deeply. But this restraint comes from awareness, not cruelty. Just as a caring parent stops a child from touching something dangerous, even when the child does not understand, Allah prevents His servants from walking into situations that would harm them spiritually or emotionally. Allah also sees how different events are connected, even when the heart experiences them as separate struggles. A hardship today may be preparing the heart for a responsibility tomorrow. A delay now may prevent regret later. A closed door may be redirecting the heart towards something purer and more fitting. These connections remain hidden until time passes and understanding grows. What once felt confusing begins to make sense only after the heart looks back with clarity. This unseen protection is one of the greatest forms of divine care. It means that Allah is actively involved in your life, guarding you in ways you cannot perceive. He is arranging outcomes, shielding you from harm, and guiding your path with precision, even when you feel alone in your struggle. Allah's awareness surrounds you completely. Nothing touches you without His knowledge, and nothing is withheld without purpose. When the heart begins to trust that Allah sees what it cannot, the struggle with delay and hardship changes. The heart may still feel pain, but it no longer feels abandoned. It begins to understand that what is happening now is not the full story. There is wisdom unfolding beyond the present moment. There is care embedded within the restraint. And there is mercy operating quietly, even when the heart cannot yet recognize its form. Learning to trust Allah's vision over the heart's perception is not easy. It requires surrender, patience, and humility. But it brings a deep form of peace. The heart no longer feels the need to control every outcome or demand immediate relief. Instead, it rests in the certainty that Allah's knowledge is complete, His mercy is intentional, and His protection is constant, even when it comes disguised as delay. There are moments in life when a person has done everything within their ability and still finds themselves standing in the same place. Effort has been exhausted, dua has been repeated, advice has been sought from people who care and from those who are wise. Plans have been made, revised, and abandoned. Yet despite all of this, nothing seems to move forward. At this point, the heart begins to feel a particular kind of heaviness, not because it has not tried, but because it no longer knows what else to do. This stage is deeply uncomfortable for the human heart, because it exposes a truth we often avoid. We do not have control over outcomes. As long as there are options to explore and steps to take, the heart feels active and hopeful. It believes that with enough effort, something will eventually change. But when options run out, the heart is forced to confront its limitations. This confrontation can feel frightening because it removes the sense of safety that comes from planning and problem solving. When logic no longer provides answers, the heart often feels lost. It wants clarity, direction, and assurance, but finds none. The mind continues to analyze the situation, searching for a missing piece, while the heart grows tired of thinking. This is the moment when frustration can easily turn into despair if the heart believes that effort alone is responsible for results. But this belief itself is an illusion that Allah gently dismantles when human options end. Allah allows moments of complete helplessness, not to humiliate the heart, but to liberate it. As long as the heart believes that it is the primary force behind change, reliance on Allah remains partial. Dua is made, but control is still held tightly. Trust is spoken, but planning is still relied upon as the true source of security. When all human strategies fail, Allah removes these supports so that the heart can finally lean fully on Him. True reliance is not proven when plans are working. It is revealed when plans collapse. Tawakkul becomes real only when the heart has nothing left to depend on except Allah. This shift does not happen easily or comfortably. It often comes with fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability. But it also opens the door to a deeper relationship with Allah, one that is built on surrender rather than strategy. Allah does not require visible pathways to bring ease into a situation. He is not limited by circumstances, resources, or human logic. What appears impossible to the mind is simple to Him. He creates solutions without following the patterns the heart expects. He brings relief from directions that were never considered. He changes outcomes in ways that could not have been planned or predicted. When all human ways disappear, the heart often believes that possibility has ended. In reality, this is the moment when divine possibility begins. Allah's power is not constrained by the absence of means. In fact, the absence of means often makes His intervention clearer. When no explanation can be found and no strategy can be credited, the heart recognizes that what has occurred is purely from Allah. This moment also reshapes how the heart understands strength. Strength is no longer seen as the ability to manage everything, but as the ability to surrender with trust. The heart learns that vulnerability before Allah is not weakness, it is honesty, it is an acknowledgement of need, and it is an act of worship in itself. When the heart admits its limits sincerely, it opens itself to divine support. The end of human options teaches the heart to release urgency. When there is nothing left to chase or control, the heart slows down. In this slowing, it begins to listen rather than demand. It teaches patience not as forced endurance, but as quiet acceptance. This acceptance creates space for Allah's decree to unfold without resistance. Many people fear reaching this stage because it feels like failure, but in truth, it is often the beginning of clarity. When the heart stops running from one solution to another, it becomes still enough to receive guidance. Allah places understanding in the heart, even if the external situation has not yet changed. This inner steadiness becomes a source of peace that does not depend on outcomes. When Allah opens a door after all human options have ended, the heart sees clearly why the waiting was necessary. If the solution had arrived earlier, it might have been credited to effort or strategy. But when it arrives after complete surrender, the heart knows without doubt that it came from Allah alone. This recognition strengthens faith in a way success alone never could. The ending of human options is not a punishment, it is an invitation. It invites the heart to step out of self-reliance and into complete dependence on Allah. It invites the soul to experience a level of trust that cannot be learned through comfort or control. And it invites the believer to witness how Allah creates ways where none seem to exist. In this space of total reliance, doors open that effort alone never could. Outcomes unfold that planning could not produce. And the heart learns a powerful truth. When all human ways end, Allah's way becomes clear, steady, and sufficient. When the heart is waiting and nothing appears to be changing, it is easy to assume that nothing is happening. Silence feels empty. Stillness feels unproductive. The mind begins to believe that time is being wasted and that the delay serves no purpose. But this assumption comes from judging the waiting period by outward movement alone. In reality, while you are waiting, Allah is deeply at work in ways that cannot be seen or measured. Allah is never idle. He is not unaware of your prayers, your tears, or the quiet endurance of your heart. Every moment of waiting is known to Him with complete awareness. While you may feel suspended in uncertainty, Allah is actively shaping what you will become before what you are asking for arrives. This shaping often matters more than the outcome itself, because the state of the heart determines how a blessing will be received, carried, and preserved. One of the first things Allah strengthens during the waiting period is patience. Not patience as forced endurance, but patience as inner stability. At the beginning of waiting, patience feels heavy and uncomfortable. The heart resists it. Over time, however, patience becomes less about holding on tightly and more about learning how to remain steady without constant reassurance. Allah allows the waiting to stretch so the heart can develop this steadiness, because without it, even good outcomes can feel overwhelming. Allah reshapes expectations. The heart often enters dua with a specific image of how relief should look and when it should arrive. These expectations, while natural, can limit the heart's ability to recognize Allah's wisdom. During the waiting period, Allah slowly loosens the heart's attachment to specific outcomes. He teaches it to trust His choices rather than cling to its own designs. This reshaping is gentle but intentional, guiding the heart away from control and toward surrender. Allah also uses the waiting to purify intentions. At first, the heart may want a blessing purely for comfort, validation, or relief from discomfort. There is nothing wrong with these desires, but Allah knows when they are mixed with attachment or fear. Through delay, Allah refines what the heart is truly seeking. Over time, the heart begins to desire closeness to Allah more than the outcome itself. It learns to turn toward Him not only when asking, but also when resting, reflecting, and trusting. Many blessings require a heart that is grounded and balanced. Without this grounding, even positive changes can create anxiety instead of peace. A heart that has not learned patience may fear losing what it gains. A heart that has not learned gratitude may take blessings for granted. A heart that has not learned humility may grow distant from Allah after receiving ease. Allah prepares the heart carefully so that when a blessing arrives, it strengthens Iman instead of weakening it. The waiting period is also a time when Allah teaches the heart endurance. Endurance is not simply surviving difficulty, but learning how to remain faithful without constant emotional reinforcement. It is learning how to continue trusting even when reassurance does not arrive immediately. This endurance builds resilience in the soul, allowing it to face future challenges with calm rather than panic. What the heart learns here becomes a source of strength long after the waiting ends. Humility is another gift cultivated during the wait. When outcomes are delayed, the heart is reminded of its dependence on Allah. It learns that effort alone is not enough, and that success is not guaranteed by sincerity alone. This humility does not weaken the heart, it softens it. It creates space for gratitude, empathy, and deeper reliance on Allah. A humble heart receives blessings differently, with awareness rather than entitlement. Trust is perhaps the most important lesson of the waiting period. Trust is not built when everything is clear and comfortable. It is built when the heart chooses to believe in Allah's wisdom without seeing immediate proof. Every day of waiting becomes an opportunity to strengthen this trust. Over time, the heart begins to rest in Allah's timing rather than resist it. This resting brings a quiet peace that does not depend on circumstances. Allah delays not because He enjoys withholding, but because He cares deeply about what the blessing will do to you. He knows the exact moment when your heart will be ready to receive, without fear, without arrogance, and without losing connection to Him. That moment is chosen with precision. Until then, Allah uses the waiting to align the heart with the gift so that when they meet, they do so in harmony. The waiting period is not empty space in your life. It is a classroom, though not one with visible lessons or clear timelines. In this classroom, the soul learns lessons that cannot be taught through ease alone. It learns how to endure without bitterness, how to hope without desperation, and how to trust without conditions. These lessons remain with the heart long after the situation changes. When the waiting finally ends, the heart often realizes that it is no longer the same heart that first began the dua. It has grown quieter, stronger, and more anchored. What once felt unbearable becomes meaningful in retrospect. The delay reveals itself not as denial, but as preparation. Allah was not withholding goodness. He was preparing the heart to receive it in a way that brings peace, gratitude, and lasting closeness to Him. Iman does not grow strongest when life feels comfortable, predictable, and easy. During ease, faith often remains quiet and untested. It exists, but it is rarely challenged to mature. True growth of Iman happens in moments of uncertainty, when the heart does not receive immediate reassurance and must decide whether it will continue to trust Allah without seeing clear results. These moments are uncomfortable, but they are also deeply transformative. When delay enters a person's life, it removes the supports that faith often leans on. There are no visible signs to point to, no quick answers to hold on to, and no guarantees to calm the mind. The heart stands alone with its belief. It must choose whether to trust Allah based on who He is, not on what He is giving at that moment. This choice is what strengthens Iman at its core. Faith becomes less about outcomes and more about conviction. Continuing to turn toward Allah during confusion is one of the most sincere acts of worship. It means that the heart is not worshiping Allah only for relief, success, or comfort. It is worshiping Him because it recognizes His wisdom, even when that wisdom is hidden. This kind of relationship is built on reliance rather than conditions. The heart learns to say, I trust you, not because things are going well, but because Allah is worthy of trust, regardless of circumstances. Delay often fills the heart with restlessness. Questions arise repeatedly. The mind searches for explanations. The soul feels unsettled. But as the heart continues to return to Allah despite the uncertainty, something begins to change. The need for immediate answers slowly weakens. The heart no longer demands clarity at every step. Instead, it becomes more comfortable with not knowing, because it trusts who is guiding the path. This shift does not happen suddenly. It happens gradually, through repeated moments of patience. Each time the heart chooses calm over panic, trust over fear, and surrender over resistance, Iman deepens quietly. These choices may feel small, but together they reshape the heart. Faith becomes less fragile and more grounded. It no longer rises and falls with circumstances, but remains steady through change. Delay also teaches the heart to separate faith from emotional states. When everything is going well, it is easy to feel spiritually strong. When nothing is going well, Iman can feel weak simply because emotions are heavy. But true Iman is not measured by how inspired a person feels. It is measured by how faithfully they remain connected to Allah when inspiration fades. Delay trains the heart to stay connected even when emotions are unsettled. As Iman deepens, the heart begins to experience surrender differently. Surrender no longer feels like giving up. It feels like resting in Allah's care. The heart understands that it does not need to control every outcome to be safe. It begins to accept that Allah's timing is not an obstacle to happiness, but a path toward it. This acceptance brings a sense of peace that does not depend on circumstances changing. One of the greatest gifts of delay is that it builds inner strength that cannot be seen from the outside. The heart becomes resilient. It learns how to endure disappointment without losing hope, how to wait without becoming bitter, and how to trust without guarantees. These qualities cannot be rushed. They require time, reflection, and repeated acts of patience. Allah allows delay because He values these qualities deeply. This strengthened Iman becomes a foundation for the future. When Allah later places blessings, responsibilities, or challenges into a person's life, the heart is able to carry them with balance. It does not collapse under pressure or become overwhelmed by success. The patience learned during delay allows the heart to remain steady, regardless of what comes next. Without this foundation, even good things can become sources of anxiety or distraction. Delay also refines the heart's relationship with Allah. Instead of turning to Him only during need, the heart learns to remain close even in stillness. Dua becomes less about urgency and more about connection. Worship becomes less about seeking change and more about seeking closeness. This deeper relationship is one of the most valuable outcomes of waiting, even though it is rarely recognized at the beginning. Uncertainty itself begins to lose its power. What once caused fear becomes familiar terrain. The heart realizes that it has survived uncertainty before and grown through it. This realization builds confidence in Allah's guidance. The heart understands that even when it does not know what is coming next, it is not walking alone. When delay is met with patience, it transforms uncertainty into spiritual strength. The heart becomes rooted rather than shaken, trusting rather than anxious, and surrendered rather than resistant. This transformation is subtle but profound. It prepares the believer not only to receive what Allah has planned, but to carry it with faith, humility, and peace. Iman that grows through delay is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and enduring. It is the kind of faith that remains firm when answers are slow and outcomes are unclear. And it is this kind of Iman that Allah strengthens most, because it reflects a heart that trusts Him completely, even when the path ahead cannot yet be seen. When Allah finally opens a way, it often does not arrive with drama or noise. There is no sudden announcement, no overwhelming shift that draws attention to itself. Instead, the change comes gently, almost quietly, from a direction the heart had not been watching. After such a long period of waiting, the heart may expect the opening to feel grand or dramatic. But Allah's solutions often arrive in ways that feel calm, fitting, and deeply intentional. The heart usually imagines relief as a complete removal of difficulty. It hopes that when Allah responds, everything will fall into place at once. But Allah's wisdom operates differently. He does not always change the entire situation overnight. Instead, He changes what needs to change first. Sometimes He adjusts circumstances. Sometimes He adjusts people. And sometimes He adjusts the heart itself so that it can finally rest, even if not every detail has been resolved. When the opening arrives, it becomes clear that the timing was as important as the outcome. Had relief come earlier, the heart might have felt overwhelmed, confused, or unprepared. What once seemed like a simple request may have carried responsibilities or consequences the heart was not ready to manage. Allah waits until peace can accompany the blessing, not fear or instability. This careful timing reflects deep mercy, not delay for its own sake. Often, the opening comes from a place the heart never considered. A door opens where no door was visible. Help comes from someone unexpected. Understanding arrives without warning. Or circumstances shift in a way that could not have been planned. The heart realizes that its own expectations were too narrow to contain Allah's wisdom. What it believed was the only solution was never the only possibility. In that moment, the heart also begins to see why earlier relief would not have carried the same clarity. If the change had come during a time of emotional unrest, it might have increased anxiety instead of easing it. If the blessing had arrived before patience had matured, it might have been carried with fear of loss rather than trust. Allah ensures that when the opening arrives, it does so at a moment when the heart can receive it with balance and gratitude. The wisdom of timing becomes especially clear in hindsight. Looking back, the heart sees how every delay shaped its perspective. What once felt unbearable becomes meaningful. Not because the pain disappears from memory, but because its role in the journey becomes visible. The heart understands that the struggle was not wasted effort or needless suffering. It was preparation for an opening that required a steadier soul. This realization brings a deep sense of calm. The heart no longer questions why things did not happen sooner. Instead, it feels relief that they did not. It recognizes that Allah spared it from outcomes that would have arrived too early and weighed too heavily. The opening feels light because the heart has been strengthened to carry it. The unexpected nature of Allah's solutions also deepens trust. The heart learns that it does not need to predict or control how relief will arrive. It learns that Allah's creativity is not limited by the heart's imagination. When one path closes, another can appear without warning. This understanding reduces fear of the future. The heart knows that even if it cannot see a way forward now, Allah can create one at the right time. The opening does not always remove every difficulty, but it changes how the heart experiences what remains. Problems that once felt crushing become manageable. Uncertainty that once caused panic becomes tolerable. The heart is no longer desperate for answers, because it has seen that Allah's timing brings clarity when it is most needed. This shift is itself a form of relief. Sometimes the opening comes not as a change in circumstances, but as a change in perception. The heart sees the situation differently. It finds peace where there was once only frustration. This change is just as significant as any external solution, because it restores balance and calm. Allah knows when the heart needs a door to open outwardly and when it needs a door to open inwardly. When the heart reflects on this process, it realizes that Allah never delayed without reason. Every moment of waiting served a purpose. Every unanswered question prepared the heart to recognize wisdom later. The opening, when it comes, feels complete because it arrives with understanding, not confusion. What once felt unbearable suddenly makes sense, not because the pain disappears, but because the heart sees how it fit into a larger plan. The struggle becomes a chapter, not the whole story. The delay becomes preparation, not denial. And the opening becomes a reminder that Allah's wisdom unfolds perfectly, even when the heart cannot see it at the time. This is how Allah creates solutions, quietly, precisely, and with mercy that reaches deeper than the heart ever expected. With the passage of time, something subtle but powerful begins to happen within the heart. Distance from the pain allows clarity to emerge, and reflection replaces confusion. The heart starts to look back on the season it once struggled to endure, not with the same heaviness, but with a deeper awareness. What once felt like a series of disappointments slowly rearranges itself into a pattern of guidance. The heart begins to understand that what it experienced was not chaos or neglect, but direction shaped through wisdom. Every closed door that once caused frustration begins to reveal its purpose. Opportunities that did not work out, relationships that did not continue, plans that collapsed despite sincere effort, all of these once felt like losses. But in hindsight, the heart can see how each closure redirected it away from harm it could not see at the time. What seemed promising on the surface may have carried emotional exhaustion, spiritual distraction, or long-term regret. Allah closed those doors quietly, not to deprive, but to protect. The pauses that once felt unbearable also begin to make sense. Waiting seasons that drained the heart emotionally were not periods of stagnation. They were moments where resilience was being built slowly and steadily. The heart learns that strength is not formed during ease, but during endurance. Those long pauses trained the soul to remain standing, even when answers were delayed. They taught the heart how to continue forward without certainty, and how to trust without constant reassurance. Unanswered dua, which once felt painful and confusing, also takes on a new meaning. The heart begins to see how those prayers refined its trust rather than weakening it. When dua was not answered in the way or time expected, the heart was forced to shift its focus from outcomes to reliance. It learned to speak to Allah not only as a requester, but as a servant seeking closeness. Over time, trust deepened, becoming quieter but stronger, no longer dependent on immediate results. What once felt like abandonment reveals itself as precision. Allah was never absent from the struggle. He was present in every delay, every redirection, and every moment of uncertainty. His guidance did not always feel comforting, but it was always intentional. The heart begins to realize that Allah's care does not always appear in the form of immediate relief. Sometimes it appears as prevention, Sometimes it appears as waiting, and sometimes it appears as strength given to endure what could not yet be removed. The heart also notices how Allah was arranging events gently, even when they felt disjointed at the time. One experience prepared the heart for the next. One disappointment softened the heart enough to receive future clarity. One delay allowed time for healing that would later become essential. Nothing was random, nothing was wasted. Even the moments that felt meaningless carried weight in the larger plan. The idea that the delay was empty space fades completely. The heart begins to understand that the waiting was full, not empty. It was filled with unseen mercy, subtle lessons, and quiet growth. During that time, the heart learned humility by recognizing its dependence. It learned gratitude by appreciating small signs of relief. It learned patience by enduring uncertainty without collapsing. These qualities were not visible achievements, but they became permanent strengths. This understanding brings peace. The heart no longer resents the past or wishes it had unfolded differently. Instead, it accepts that the timing shaped the outcome in the best possible way. Even pain becomes easier to hold when its purpose is understood. The heart recognizes that Allah did not remove hardship immediately because it was doing important work beneath the surface. The memory of struggle changes as well. It no longer defines the heart as a place of suffering, but as a place of growth. The pain becomes part of the journey rather than the destination. The delay becomes a bridge rather than a barrier. This shift in perspective transforms gratitude from something forced into something natural and sincere. Looking back with understanding also strengthens trust in the future. The heart remembers how confused it once was and how clarity eventually arrived. It remembers how lost it once felt and how direction slowly emerged. This memory becomes a source of confidence in Allah's guidance. When new uncertainties appear, the heart is less shaken because it has seen how Allah works through delay before. The heart realizes that Allah's guidance is not always immediate, but it is always precise. He guides not only toward outcomes, but toward growth. He shapes the servant before shaping the circumstances. This realization allows the heart to rest even when it does not yet know what comes next. The heart understands that Allah was never distant. He was closer than the struggle itself, guiding every step with intention and care. What once felt like silence was actually a form of protection. What once felt like rejection was actually a redirection. And what once felt like waiting was actually preparation. The delay was never empty. It was filled with mercy, working quietly, shaping the outcome gently, and preparing the heart to recognize wisdom when it finally appeared. Remember that Allah has never measured your life by speed or visible progress. He has measured it by sincerity, endurance, and the quiet strength of your heart. Every moment you waited without losing faith, every time you turned to Him despite not understanding, and every prayer you whispered in uncertainty carried meaning. Nothing was ignored, nothing was misplaced. Everything unfolded with intention. What once felt like standing still was actually movement beneath the surface. Allah was guiding you away from harm, protecting you from outcomes you could not see, and preparing you for a moment that would arrive with peace rather than confusion. The delay did not weaken you, it refined you. It taught your heart how to trust without conditions and how to remain steady when answers were slow. If you are still waiting, let this be your reassurance. Allah does not delay out of distance, nor does He withhold out of neglect. When the way seems hidden, it is because something greater is being arranged with care. Trust the process you cannot yet understand. Trust the timing that feels uncomfortable. Trust the one who sees what the heart cannot. When the way finally opens, it will not arrive as something rushed or forced. It will arrive as something fitting, something gentle, something that meets the heart where it is and not where it once was. And in that moment, you will realize that the waiting was not something you had to survive, but something that shaped you into someone ready to receive with peace. Until that day, remain close, remain patient, remain hopeful. Allah is still working, even now.